Hello everyone, welcome to the second DFS Worldwide webinar. My name is Yannick Bayer and I will be your moderator for today. Exactly 1 year ago, we had the pleasure to perform the first webinar and to stay in touch with you during the COVID pandemic. The feedback we received was so good that we decided right away that we will use this medium again to maintain our relationship with our friends, partners and customers all over the world. So great to have you here today. As you can see, we decided to use a different tool today. It is called Hopin. And of course, we will try to answer all your questions for the different sessions we have planned for today. To the right side of your screen, the chat functionality is enabled. There are already some people posting where they're watching the session from, which is great to see. So please use this also to post your questions. And our background team will select the most suitable ones to ask them to the speakers right after each session. So, before we have a look at the agenda and begin with the presentations for today, a very big welcome to Mr. Arndt Schönemann, new CEO of DFS Deutsche Flugsicherung and in office since April 1st. And Mr. Schönemann has some opening words for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. You said it already. I'm now the new CEO since the 1st of April. So more or less for 8 weeks. My name is Arndt Schönemann and I have more than 30 years experience in the aviation industry. Of course, more related to manufacturing side, to the production side than the ANSP side, but the community is small and I had a lot of opportunities also in my professional past to be involved in the community of airlines, community of airports, and of course also the ANSPs. I was very active, by the way, also in Brussels, in the EU, towards the European Commission. It is a small family. In the last 12.5 years, I was managing director of Liebherr Aerospace in Lindenberg in the very south of Germany. This company is doing landing gear systems and flight control systems as well as air conditioning systems for airplanes. Of course, also very much hit by the pandemic. The pandemic, and we are in times now which are very difficult to overcome. All of us, we are looking for cost reductions. We are looking how to optimize our business. From my perspective, the key elements will be automation and digitalization in the future. That means we need to reduce our efforts to do our jobs. This is one key element to reduce costs. On the other side, we have a challenge. We have a lot of challenges due to the climate changes and due to the needs that we need to work on a better future through our systems and through our working together. We know that the European Union launched the Green Deal, and the DFS, the entire DFS group, is very much committed to fulfill its obligations to work on optimization of flight routes, of technologies, to make its contribution towards the community. And I think these topics will be the most important ones for today's webinar. And I wish you all a very nice day and a lot of interesting insights and a lot of interesting discussions between yourselves. And I guess there are a lot of very interesting presentations which have been prepared for today's webinar. On behalf of the entire DFS group, I welcome you and I wish you a very pleasant day and a very interesting day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schönemann, for those opening words. We will most certainly touch most of the topics you mentioned in our webinar and our sessions for today. So now, before we begin, let us have a brief look at the agenda and what we have planned for today. In a few moments, Mr. Andreas Pölsch, our Managing Director of DFS Aviation Services, will begin his first session and he will speak about COVID recovery. And afterwards, we will switch to my colleague Hans de Jong to our office in Beijing, We did experience some technical difficulties, but it looks very positive that he will be able to connect. Afterwards, we will move to the very important topic of green flying, presented by colleagues from Lufthansa and DFS. And of course, also speak about remote tower today, and especially focus on the topic of multiple remote tower operations and challenges for research and implementation from an operational perspective. Afterwards, of course, drones are also a topic that will be addressed by today from our Managing Director, Jan-Erik Putzer of the other DFS daughter company, Dronic. The session today will be concluded by a new generation of runway safety, presentation held by a colleague from Frankfurt Airport together with DFS. I believe we are ready to go and would like to hand over to Mr. Andreas Pölsch. He is Managing Director of DFS Aviation Services. Before he was working for DFS for more than 25 years in numerous positions. Among others, he was DFS Director Center and en route, and also Chairman Network Director Operations Meeting of Eurocontrol. Andreas, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Yannick. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are currently. In a country where you already overcome the COVID pandemic, or you are still in a severe lockdown, or anything in between, as we are currently in Germany, unfortunately. So I would like to share with you my very personal experience with the COVID-19 pandemic. As Yannick said, I was for now nearly 30 years in air navigation services, starting as an air traffic controller, then worked as a head of a tower, head of one of the busiest ACCs in Europe, of Karlsruhe, UAC. And then I became director for all international towers in Germany, and in the end, for the en route business in Germany. And at the same time, I had some international obligations as a chairman of the Functional Airspace Block FABEC Standing Committee Operations, as a chairman of the Direct Operations Meeting in Europe with the operational oversight over the network manager, and to name a few, as a chairman of the steering committee ITEC, the most, let's say, the largest corporation of system ATS system development in Europe. So in all these years, I've seen a couple of crises, not only the current one, but as well before, and we were focusing, of course, at our highest priority on safety in air navigation services. But then the wheel turned in circles. We focused on cost efficiency and cost cutting in financial difficult times. We focused on at times on heavy traffic growth. We focused on capacity and delay. Then when the traffic slowed down, we focused on environmental business, and then it turns again, and we did the same thing again as in the past. So I thought I've seen everything in the past, but I would like to share my very personal experience for the current crisis, because this is something I haven't seen before. You know, normally in air navigation services, our business cycle is very slow. We are not that quick to adapt to new challenges. We are heavily regulated, and we need a lot of time to adjust to anything. We need a lot of time to train controllers, to get their license ready for the individual tower or en route place. We need a lot of time to share our business opportunities, and this is something I've learned in the past. So I'm just trying to share my screen. I'm not sure if you're seeing something now. Oh, obviously it's the wrong one. So all this technical experience we got in the past as well. So let's try again. It's not working this way. Maybe somebody from the stage can help me with the presentation and to share the presentation for me, if that's possible. So I'm just going ahead with the things I want to tell you.
Andreas?
Yeah.
Just open the window you want to share, open it before sharing.
Okay, let's try it this way. Just a few minutes. So obviously it's not working. So maybe you can share it from the central stage.
Then we can share, right? Then Andreas, we will share your slides.
Okay, thank you very much. So just starting since 2.5 years now, I'm the managing director of DFS Aviation Services, the commercial part of the DFS group of the German ANSP. And until 2020, we were fast growing. We have we serve regional airports in Germany with air traffic services. We have our own software department where we produce specialized software on ATS and ATS systems. We sell worldwide and do the proper maintenance for them. We have our own training academy where we train air traffic controllers and engineers, and as well we have consulting services all along the aviation business chain. So business was growing until 2020. We have as well some subsidiaries. We have our UK subsidiary serving Gatwick and Edinburgh with air traffic services. We are proud to serve the Kingdom of Bahrain with highly qualified staff and consulting services. We have a company in Spain, and we have a joint venture with the industry partner Frequentis. It's called Aerosense. It's concentrating on the remote tower business. And on top of that, we have offices in Singapore and Beijing. So all in all, we were growing fast, and life was okay. And we were looking forward for the business opportunities in the future. So this was the situation before 2020. We have around 400 people working in the commercial business of DFS worldwide. And then we, of course, in this pre-pandemic times, we were used to go to international meetings. We had usually the trainings in Langen in Germany. We were used to produce and implement then the systems at our customer sites. We organized international events. We took part in international events, and we were used to on-site maintenance. And there was no real reason to change this. It was working well. The procedures were proved and successful, so everything was fine for us. So then if you go to the next slide, please. Then all of a sudden, I remember this was a very personal thing for me. Beginning of 2020, where the first the first crisis criteria came up, and we did what we did in the past. We activated our crisis management cell. We have the processes for that as ANSPs, of course, and we thought we could handle this on a tactical basis. So it's the usual thing you do. You look what are the changes for the future, for the business environment. What do we have to adjust? And what's the best way to cope with that? And more and more after the first few weeks and months, we have seen that this is not going the normal way. That's not handled only tactically as we did it in the past. So we thought about thinking more strategically and seeing what our customer need in this current crisis. So starting at the air traffic services in Germany, our customers are the regional airports, and of course they had a very changing life with the traffic levels, with the airlines coming or not coming, and it was not clear until the last moment if we need staffing in the tower or not. So we found a way to very flexible adjust our staffing levels in the tower to be able to provide the service when it is needed and save money when no traffic is there. Obviously, we did something right with that because we got the Industry Airport International Award for Best COVID-19 Response for that. So we were very proud of that our operations obviously was able to be very near to the customer, to the airport, to handle this with very much flexibility. Then we started to look at our systems and our development of systems, but as well the testing and the acceptance test In the past, we did it at the customer sites, and now we developed some other ways. We focused on remote work, very much on remote work. It was acceptable by the customer. It was acceptable by our people. And in the end, the results proved to be working the same way as we did before. But it's more, of course, without traveling and everything, it's more cost efficient than before. And under the conditions we have now, with the lockdowns everywhere, it proved to be working successfully in a crisis. Next thing we did is on our system strategy. We thought about, do we really have to have the systems at each place at the customer sites, or isn't the best way or the better way to go for web services and web systems? And we started the first one with our Web Phoenix product. It's a product you use for air traffic controller display for the situational awareness. And we started with that one, and obviously for the interest of many customers, not only ANSPs, but airlines and airports as well, and other companies who rely on the positions of aircraft and helicopters. So with the web services, we were able to reduce the direct contact with the customer in these times, and we just offered the customer the service via the internet. The only thing you need is no installation at your site or no complicated acceptance tests or these kind of things. You just subscribe a service, and then you get on a normal internet platform, you get your service and can use it in air traffic control. This was not done before, and I think nobody was really into it before, but this crisis brought up new ideas, and we found this would be very rational for our customers, and they would like to have this. Then on the training issue, on the training platform, we were used in the past to train on-site here near Frankfurt within our own academy. Thinking about that and not sure how long this crisis will last with the travel restrictions, we started to develop online training courses, mainly for the proficiency training for air traffic controllers. Nowadays, this is something you're very much dependent on. We concentrated on online simulation platforms, and we see that we have now about more than 15 different courses for human factors, for emergency trainings, etc., etc. So this was something which really proved well in this crisis. And taking another example, as you probably know, during this crisis with very low traffic, it's not easy to keep up the proficiency of air traffic controllers. If they're used to low traffic over a period of time, it's difficult if the traffic is then growing very fast to adjust to that and get their normal proficiency back. That's the reason why we developed the simulator training for proficiency measures. And in the meantime, we got an agreement with our National Supervisory Authority to even have checkouts and getting licenses as well at a simulator and not only in live traffic. So this is something as well where everybody adapted to the new situation, and we were proud that we are one of the first ones to arrange that with our National Supervisory Agency. So these are some examples from this pandemic where it first started as a normal crisis, if you may say so. And we were used to act tactically on that, but then after a couple of weeks or months, we have seen this is not working anymore. This is changing our business. And what I said in the beginning, that it takes quite long in air navigation services to change something and to adjust to something. This crisis brought a lot of negative things, but as well one positive thing, that we are now able to quicker react on this kind of thing, to reinvent our business quicker than before. And we see that as well, more cost-efficient processes work as well in air navigation services. So coming to the next slide, the post-pandemic recovery. What we have seen so far in the crisis is that it's very important to keep very near our customers and see what is their situation, because you can't say one situation is the same for each customer. It's depending on the country, it's depending on the magnitude of the lockdown in this pandemic, it's depending on other factors. So until now, we were able to stay very close to our customers and discuss for their individual products and services they receive from us. How should we react? What should we postpone? Do we have alternative ways to provide our services or products, etc.? So this was really something we were looking forward and we want to use in the future as well. Starting on the left upper corner, what we can use now, and at least in the countries where the traffic is not yet back at the old levels before pandemic, we can prove new concepts, for instance, for green flying, for more vertical flight efficiency, more horizontal flight efficiency, and other processes and procedures. This is the right time to do these things, because if the traffic is up again, either you have working procedures for that, or you concentrate on the normal controlling of aircraft and not taking into account new procedures. Secondly, what I see now is very much the focus on more cost efficiency. The capacity issue and the delay issue is not in focus worldwide for the time being. But what I have seen over the past 3 decades, it will come back. It will come back, and we have to be prepared for that, to see now what are the best way to enhance the capacity without spending too much money at the current time for that. And where are opportunities, and where are, let's say, good ways we can manage that, but it has to be addressed now and not only to concentrate on the cost efficiency. The next bubble is the interface between airlines, airports, and ANSPs. This is something I haven't seen only in Germany, but as well in my international obligations. We have a lot of inefficiencies at the interface between the 3 players in aviation. And if we are able to align the processes, if we are able to use the same database, and if we use the good examples we have already at some of the airports in some countries, there's a very close working of airlines, airports, and ANSPs, then I would say we can achieve a lot of things, not only for capacity and punctuality, but as well for cost efficiency at all 3 players. Another post-pandemic finding is what we have done in this pandemic is to try to let our people work from home as far as possible. I think we won't stay at that level where, of course, there's a need to come back to the office and sit together and discuss complicated systems together. But it should be in the future a good relationship between working from home and working from the office. That's something we want to keep for the future as well. And that's overall what we have seen during this pandemic. As I said, a lot of negative things happening during this pandemic, but there are as well here and there good things we can use for the future. That's the COVID-driven processes. We were forced to invent them, we were forced to use them, and they are established now, and they are okay with the future, and they prove to be very cost efficient and a good way to go ahead. So this is something we want to secure for the future as well. So coming back to the last slide and to the statement I made in the beginning, if you change the slide. Coming back to the meetings, virtual or in-person meetings, I think we will have both in the future. The same with the training. It's not only online training in the future. You need to have as well a 360-degree simulator for big towers. But we can do a lot of things as well online as we do already today. For system implementations, we can use the technology we've learned in the processes now in the pandemic and do system implementations online or remotely. We can do it as well at the customer side on the wish of the customer. For networking events, I guess this is one which will stay, at least the majority of them, as virtual meetings. doesn't make any sense to fly 2 or 3 hours to a place to meet for 2 hours and then go back. These kind of meetings for sure will stay virtually. Other meetings with longer meetings and meetings where you need to discuss with customers more in person, of course, will take place as in the past. And the same is for the maintenance part, where still some technical systems not able for remote maintenance, but all the systems we produce now will be able for remote maintenance. So it will be a mixture between on-site and remote maintenance. So coming back to what I said in the beginning, what is the learning from this crisis? I think we are able to quicker react now on the crisis or on anything's happening. For sure, this won't be the last one we are talking about. So our business cycles are not that rigid as we thought in the past, and we are not that long as in the past. We learned a lot during this crisis, and we were able to rethink our business model. And this is for me the most tangible outcome for the future. And I'm pretty much convinced that the business will grow. We see already the traffic is coming back or is back in some countries at pre-COVID levels. And this will, of course, show the same problems we had in the past with capacity, with cost efficiency, with environmental issues. So we can use our experience over the last months to bring these items, these issues forward, and then we are looking for sustainable growth for the future. I'd like to thank you very much. Sorry for the technical problems we've had, but in the end it worked out. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for this very, very interesting insight. Apologies for the technical problems we had, but it should be solved for the speakers to come. Thank you also very much to the community for the questions we received. You're very active. That is great to see. We have 2 or 3 minutes left, Andreas, to discuss some minor topics with you. First question I picked now is coming from Rafa. Thanks very much, Rafa, and regards to Spain. Considering the amount of technology and the digitalization of the service provision, the question is, to what extent do you expect the ADCO jobs and roles will change in the near future? I think that's very interesting, Andreas.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. So I remember times when I still was in ADCO, quite a couple of years ago. There was already the discussion about how long do we need ADCOs because technology is developing fast, and we have the safe separation in the air, and for sure you can start it as an ADCO, but it won't last long. So now we are 30 years later, and we still have the ADCOs, and not that many things have changed. Of course, we have more complicated technology. We have a lot of functionality, system functionality to help the controller. The manual work or the head work is, in most of the places, is gone now. The machines are doing that, and we seeing the same development in the cockpits. It's going to more and more support to the operator. And that's what I see for the future as well. Technical changes will be bigger than before. That's at least what I see already with cloud technology we are starting to use, with data center technology, and with the flexibility you have from the pure technical side for the future to move the work where it has to be done and where you have the capacity and the resources for that, meaning the flexibility to have airspaces, work from controllers from one place to the other. A lot of things have to be done in this regard in terms of licensing, in terms of some change management as well on the controller side. But what I see in the future, the controller will still be the operator. To what extent you really need to do something as a pure decision by himself, or to which extent the machines will help him to that, this is the development I see. And of course, this will be different for each country, depending on the technology they use, but as well depending on the regulation in the areas of the world where you are not heavily regulated on controllers' flexibility. It's easier to adjust. For other areas, the regulation has to, let's say, move a step forward as well to go in this direction of flexibility.
Thank you very much, Andreas. For all the questions that we are now unable to answer because of the time constraints we have, we will gather all those questions and we will somehow answer them after the session and distribute them to all participants for today. So thank you very much, Andreas, for this very interesting insight. We will now move to the next topic. My colleague Hans is online. Hans is our chief representative in Beijing, and he was active in numerous roles in DFS before. He will give us an update on the situation in China and also talk about a very interesting research and development project we have just initiated with our Chinese partners. Hans, how are you? How's the situation in Beijing?
Yeah, good morning, Europe. Good afternoon, Asia. Happy to see you. Yeah, Yannick, everything is quite fine here, except for that we had a internet outage just half an hour ago, so I had to rush home and I'm a little bit sweaty and smelly. For the rest, I would say daily life is 99% normal here. As we'll see in a minute, hardly any corona cases left in China. We all wear our masks, show our app when we want to enter somewhere. A lot of officials, taxi drivers, hotel staff have all been immunized. Domestic travel, I would say, normal. International traffic still difficult. Anyway, let's. I dug up some figures regarding that. Let's have a look at those. Last week, I look at the actual number of new corona cases, and I was amazed to see that for the whole of China, this was just 15 new cases on a daily basis. Pretty much stable already since, I would say, later spring last year. We all remember the big peak in corona in Wuhan. Some of my friends have felt this from very nearby within Wuhan. Amazing and also quite dramatic stories. But the pandemic was quickly contained here. And although we see a small bumps after, I would say, April 2020, these are really minor bumps of maybe a few hundred cases, new cases a day, which were also quickly maintained. Anyway, let's have a look at what this did with air traffic in China. Here we see another amazing picture. I dug up aircraft movement data from the website of the Civil Aviation Administration of China. What we see there, I would say the first half of the graph on the left is on a monthly basis around 1 million flights. And then, of course, there is the big dip early last year, traffic going down to perhaps 25%, but already in February, things started to improve rapidly, and late summer, autumn, aircraft movements basically were back or close to normal levels of 1 million flights a month. Then, a bit remarkable, I had to look at it twice before understanding it. Early this year, in January, there was a small outbreak in the Xunyi district here in Beijing. And in February, people were encouraged to stay home, whereas normally people travel to their parents all over the country, and there is a lot of traffic going on. In February, people were basically sitting home, and we were back at 50%. Now, that nevertheless was just a temporary dip. My friends at ATMB were so kind to provide the IFR flight numbers of last month, and what we see there is, yeah, I was amazed to see it. Domestically, there is about 14% more traffic than in 2019. Nevertheless, international traffic is still quite low on probably a third of the normal figures. Anyway, this is probably a picture that all countries are jealous of. So quick and so good recovery of air traffic. And this has brought big shifts in, for instance, what are the biggest airports of the world? Everybody, including me, remember that Atlanta has been the largest in terms of passengers for, I believe, over 22 years. Suddenly, last year, Guangzhou, a lot of people have never heard of this city. It's a quite big city. Canton, also in Germany, was the largest airport in the world in terms of air traffic. And in the top 10, there were suddenly 7 Chinese large airports. The 3 other ones were US. The 2019 picture looks totally different. Among the 10 largest, there are 4 US, 2 Chinese, 2 European, and 2 other Asian airports. Anyway, let's move to the actual topic of this short presentation. The cooperative R&D project we do together with the Nanjing Research Institute of Electronics Engineering. We do this project with this Nanjing Institute in a larger context, in a larger program intended to improve long-haul flights, for instance, from Guangzhou to Nairobi. And what I dug up from internet and what is on the middle of the picture is the flight of Kenya Airways 883 of about 2 weeks ago from Guangzhou to Nairobi. It's, I would say, a little bit wild flight route. And it's about, it crosses about 12 FIR. So it's actually quite a complicated flight. What we do in our project with Nanjing is we concentrate on the beginning of these flights from a very, very busy Pearl River Delta area, probably comparable to some of the airspace over Germany. And we contribute, I would say, most importantly, our operational expertise and our expertise on trajectory-based operations. So let's have a brief look at the organizations involved. Here you see the beautiful logo of the Nanjing Research Institute of Electronics Engineering. It sounds a little bit weird in ATM, but it's actually an institute that is there for many dozens of years. It is a very famous institute in China for air traffic management. We're working together with them since 2017, 2018. Very reliable and very, very expert level institute. Very happy to work together with them. And this institute is also the mother organization of a company called Nanjing LES Information Technology that is a large air traffic management system supplier in China. Anyway, in this project for the Nanjing Institute, DFS Aviation Services does the project management. We facilitate a workshop together with the colleagues from Nanjing on ATC operations, and we facilitate a site visit to an oceanic control center. It's a little bit about the German FIRs, of course. The mother organization, DFS German Air Navigation Services, provides a lot of expertise via their R&D department, especially on trajectory-based operations. And there are also 2 experienced air traffic controllers, en route controllers involved. Last but not least, there is a foundation from a city near Frankfurt, Darmstadt, the Ernst Schröder Center with high-end mathematics that is considered to be a suitable framework for trajectory-based operations. Anyway, a little bit more about the work. So we've started early this year with operational familiarization. So the colleagues in Nanjing are trying to help us as much as possible to see how things work from an ATM operational point of view. We hope before too long we can send our people and our controllers there as well. We are writing a vision paper how trajectory-based operations and also free route airspace could help in the aforementioned context. Then in the next step, there will be suggestions for improvement of the operations near Guangzhou from a TBO point of view and first requirements on a functional level. Already started has the, I would say, the detailed R&D on aircraft performance modeling and on trajectory prediction, also for conflict detection. Anyway, it's work that started a couple of months ago. I would say towards the end of the year, it is a good moment to present first results together with DFS and the Nanjing Research Institute of Electronics Engineering. Thank you, Irina, for your great clicking. Back to you, Yannick.
Hans, thank you very much for this very interesting insight, and great to see you doing very well in China. We did receive some questions via different channels. I've just seen that. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so we will have to move to the next presentation. So Hans, thank you very much again. Stay safe in Beijing, and it's absolutely great work that you do on behalf of DFS and on behalf of Germany on site there. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, Hans.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the next session for today. It's 10:10, so we are absolutely on time. We will now move to a topic that was also addressed by our CEO in his opening speech. We will talk about the ecological aspect that we currently call green flying. We have 3 dedicated speakers ready to begin. We have Mr. Armin Bayerle, who is Director Operations at Langen for DFS. We have Horst Thiel-Ott, Senior Air Traffic Controller, and we have Frank Lumnitzer from Deutsche and Captain A330-340. They all together have created a very interesting presentation oriented topic. So I will hand the floor to you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Now I need to take over Armin's role. This is unexpected. Sorry for that. My name is Frank Lumnitzer. I'm a captain of Lufthansa, working as a captain on A330, A340, and as a senior manager for the group ATM development part within Lufthansa. Thanks to my colleagues from DFS that we are allowed to speak here and to present our joint efforts in being more sustainable in aviation. Is the presentation switching? Can you see that? Hopefully. So we would like to talk about how we set up the scene for an collaborative work together with airlines and air navigation service providers. And what does it mean? How to collaborate? How did we change existing structures? And secondly, we would like to present 3 specific examples or concepts how we transferred parts of German airspaces into a more sustainable operation. And the conclusion will be presented by my colleague Horst, what can be done in a later stage. So this is actually Armin's role right now. As you can see, aviation has a significant impact on the environment. This is what we need to make clear to ourselves. It doesn't make sense to shift that away. The pressure on aviation is rising, especially in Europe, and we feel that significantly in Germany. We committed on ICAO level and to a more to better and improve global solutions for a sustainable future. That's basically a global commitment. And the challenge is, as Armin set it up here, how do we keep the balance between our capacity requirements and the sustainability, or we call it green flying today? And Armin made a very impressive point by putting up here on that slide. The single flight, the individual single flight is best optimized by one team. The team is pilot and air traffic controller. But when it comes to make the sustainability more plannable, to develop it in a harmonized way, to implement it in a structured way, then the challenge starts, because we will require a change of our airspaces and airspace geometries maybe, and working methods, for instance. So we brought you examples what I mentioned before, and we took the crisis as a challenge. The COVID-19 crisis is a crisis where at least the entire industry went down, and there were parts in the industry who were not able to cope with the crisis and to use it as a chance. And we do think that we did it right. But coming to the next slide, that when it comes to sustainable operations, and how to balance the capacity requirements, safety requirements, and sustainability requirements. It's easy to implement or to demonstrate sustainability in a single pilot project. But when it comes to a sustainable change of airspace, it requires a structure. And the key success factor to change something is the real collaboration. What does it mean? A couple of years ago, we developed a so-called airspace strategy for Germany. And the national airspace strategy, we call it the Common Airspace Strategy. And it's a strategy which describes how to transform our vision into a plan. The airspace strategy combines three master elements. The first element is the working field airspace design, structure, and usage. This is actually one where we look into specific projects like optimization of TMA Frankfurt, or optimization of TMA Düsseldorf Cologne, or how to implement free route airspaces, etc., etc. But there are supporting elements required. The first one is the segment B, we call it the key technology. So we need to have a toolbox. How can we implement changes that we might need different technologies and different projects? Instantly, data link comes into my mind, or PBN. And the third segment, which we identified, which needs to be included in the strategy, is the regulatory framework. If you really would like to move forward, we all know that we have regulative barriers in place, and we need to overcome this in order to be faster. As you know, air traffic control mostly is working in the first come, first served principle. So there might be an advantage to use a so-called best equipped, best served principle. And here we lay down the foundation on the regulatory level how to use such a concept. And then we need, on the other side, on the right side, the workbench. The workbench is our working group Optimized Flying. And it's a platform where the legacy German airlines, Condor, TUI Fly, Lufthansa, and the ANSP, Deutsche Flugsicherung, are working together on very specifically in detailed projects. Here we transform the strategy into actual results. And I put up a third box underneath, which is called data. Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, you can't measure, or you can't manage what you can't measure. So data have an essential element in all sustainable change projects. But at the end of the day, it's all about people. And what we are as Lufthansa very proud of is that we are set up a relationship to our ANSP DFS, which makes things really happen. And thanks to our colleagues to DFS to join us in this effort, and that we join together and join forces and bring things really forward. So we brought you three proven concepts. It's a so-called the low demand concept, the Frankfurt RMP Yankee approach, and Horst will talk about high transition operations, which is talking about continuous descent operations later on. The first example is the so-called low demand concept. It's about improving trajectories into our hubs, Frankfurt and Munich, and during the crisis period. So crisis as a chance. Now we have space, now we have time, now we have really the resources and capacities to look into our airspace and to learn how can we transfer efficiency increasing projects into post-crisis operations, because we are not having now the capacity pressure. So we consider into three areas. It's the lateral domain, the vertical domain, and the flight planning domain. So, and within this low demand concept, the working group identified the major arrival and departure streams out of Munich and Frankfurt. And we structured, now we tried to structure the tactical effort of the individual air traffic controller in a more structured way. So we defined entry and exit points where directs will be given. So an example is if you fly into Germany from the Vienna airspace, you will receive a direct clearance from entry of German airspace towards a metering point, which is located southeast of Frankfurt Airport. And pilots are urged to communicate their optimum top of descent for its individual flight towards air traffic control. And I don't know if you're able to look into the diagram on the lower left side. I made 3 red circles there. It's a diagram provided by Eurocontrol, which is comparing the average time flown during a level during descent in the year 2019 and in the crisis period. And we can demonstrate by those numbers that we realized for Frankfurt and Munich the largest decrease of average time flown in level flight. This is an excellent success. And in terms of numbers, I can demonstrate you and can display here the numbers valid for Lufthansa Group Airlines. So we are saving right now about 24.0 tons of fuel every day in comparison to the pre-crisis period, which is equalizing towards 74,000 kilograms CO2 saving per day, or over the year of 27 million kilogram saving per year. This is an excellent proof that you can create a more sustainable aviation. And the question for us and the challenge for us is now, what can we save into the post-crisis period? And that's what we are right now working on. The second example is the so-called Frankfurt RMP Yankee approach. It's a PBN application. And we amended the so-called low demand concept by use of the RMP Yankee approach for all arrivals into Frankfurt, arriving from southeast. And it's a joint project of DFS, Lufthansa, and Fraport. And what we did is we realized a classic win-win situation for efficiency and noise. You might see here the yellow bubbles, Offenbach and Hanau. Those are highly densely populated areas near Frankfurt. And we really avoid those 2 densely populated areas by using the PBN approach, RMP Yankee. And as another positive aspect, the RMP Yankee is providing the most efficient lateral and vertical trajectory right now available for arrival streams from southeast into Frankfurt. And we started the project 1st of March 2021. Since yesterday, we flew as Lufthansa Group the 1000th RMP Yankee approach. At the time we produced the slides here, we were up to 688. which is equivalent to 114,000 kilograms CO2 saving within a 2 months period. And we believe that those projects correctly implemented provide an important element to become more sustainable in aviation. The question is just right now for us, how do we transform it in a more regular use in the future in the post-crisis period? Horst, I think my time is over. It's your turn. Thanks for your interest, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frank, for your nice presentation. And good morning to everybody again. My name is Horst Thielott. I'm a senior air traffic controller in the Frankfurt ACC, and I've been a member of the HTO working group from the very beginning in the year 2013. So for me, it's a great pleasure to give you some background information on the HTO procedure. And believe me, I could talk about hours about that topic, but they only gave me 10 minutes. So I have to bit to shorten. HTO stands for High Transition Operations. And as Frank mentioned it before, it's nothing else than a continuous descent procedure, but a very special one, as you will see. And the procedure was implemented on the M-on-1 single star towards Frankfurt. It's the name NPAC star. And so I will give you information about the goals, about the design of the star and of the benefits. The main objectives of that high transition operation, I consider that from different perspectives. First, from an airliner perspective, the aim was to fly as long as possible at cruising level and not to start a descent before reaching the top of descent. And thereafter, of course, we would like to enable a descent with idle power, with no level offs, which is a continuous descent, with the aim to save fuel and CO2. From ATC perspective, the aims are a bit different. We have the same goal to enable a CDO from cruising level, but at the same time, we have, as ATC, of course, to protect other airspaces and crossing airways with its crossing aircraft. By using a procedure, not by individual clearances, we would like to use a procedure for separation purposes. At the end of the day, our aim is to reduce the amount of radio telephony. Savings of about 50 to 70% should be possible to increase the sector capacity. So the HTO project is a combination of with the aims to increase capacity and to enable green flying. Next slide, please. Yeah, and I think if we are talking about CDO, we all agree the best clearance, of course, would be when, let's say, an aircraft will come at cruising level 360, and we have to bring them down to level 100. The best clearance would be for aircraft purposes, of course, when ready, descent flight level 100. That is the best clearance ever for a CDO for every individual flight. But, and now is a big but, if you see the red line on that map, that is the inbound routing, and you see there are a lot of crossing airways in between, with a lot of crossing aircraft in between. And around the star, you will see a lot of different airspaces. And our task is to protect all the other aircraft and all the other airspaces. And with the clearance, when ready descent flight level, the altitudes for the inbound traffic is for the controller unpredictable. So that didn't work, that clearance. So we choose the only feasible option. Next slide, please. Yeah. A new solution was necessary, and in our opinion, we choose the only feasible solution for densely flown airspace. We designed a star like a tube, covering the most formerly flying descent profiles, And we defined the tube by creating, go back, please, that slide, please. We defined the tube by creating waypoints with upper and lower flight level constraints. And with these constraints, we can protect other airspaces or other airways. No, he mixed a bit up, yeah. And can you go to the next slide, please, Frank? Here you can see a cross-section of that star. We calculated the profile of the tube with different rates of descent. Our constraint is calculated with a rate of 260 feet per nautical miles for a quite shallow descent. And the upper limit is defined by 380 feet per nautical miles for a quite steep or sporty descent. So we are covering the most descent profiles on that route with the different rate of descent. The average rate of descent should be about 300 feet per nautical miles. That is the definition of continuous descent. The first point of the star is located, you can see it on the left-hand side of that picture, is located 86 nautical miles from the transfer point to approach. And we have in total 7 waypoints with constraints. And you see the highest flight level is level 360, and at the opening of the star. And if you know that the transition between Switzerland and Germany is between level 3.4 and 3.60, you see we are covering all aircraft coming from that direction in cruising level. So we enable a descent out of cruising level with a bit different wording. For that wording, we needed the Amendment 7 ICAO, which covers the radio telephony. And there is a very small word in that phrase, but that makes a huge difference. The clearance now sounds, when ready, descent via star. Via star. The word via, that little word, makes a big difference to all other clearances. With the word via, we indicate the pilot that he has to comply with all constraints depicted on the chart or depicted in the FMS. Next slide, please. What is the conclusion in relation to green flying? And in refer to capacity, a significant amount of CO2 reduction, fuel savings, and increase in capacity has been achieved with that star already. Fuel savings of approximately 40 kilo per flights on average. I know that doesn't sound so much, 40 kilo per flight, but we have only twin, on that star we have mostly twin engine aircraft. And at the end of the day, we are coming via the mass of aircraft. If you see the next line, we have about more than 20,000 flights per year on that NPAC star. And these flights can lead to 2.6 million kilograms of CO2 savings. And a reduction of radio telephony workload for ATCOs of at least 50%, which can significantly increase the sector capacity. And let me finish with a few personal words, perhaps. The HDO project was and is one of the most challenging projects in the DFS. We had to convince both pilots and controllers of the procedure. And a project like this only works, and I think Frank mentioned it before as well, it only works if ATC, airliners, and regulators work very closely together. And that happened magnificently in this project. And the CO2 savings should encourage us to continue on that path. And according to our opinion, the only possible way to establish a CDO is that HDO procedure. We need a tube, we need a safety method to protect all other aircraft. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thanks very much, Horst. And especially thanks to Frank for covering Armin's part, and apologies for the technical difficulties we experienced here. We did receive some very interesting questions. Maybe we start with the first one that was addressed to Frank. Low demand concept also means that non-Frankfurt and non-Munich are at a low level. Figures obtained from Eurocontrol are interesting. What will be the effects when all traffic grows again, and also for regional airports? Because those have to be handled by ATM as well. Frank, can you take that question?
Thank you. It's an interesting question which I really expected. That's what we are talking about within this project right now. The implementation was easy, but how to prolong the project and how to make it more sustainable, this is a challenge. First of all, the solution low demand is available not only to Lufthansa Group, it's available to all traffic flying into Frankfurt, out of Frankfurt, into Munich, out of Munich, to basically all hubs in Germany right now. So the numbers we demonstrated are pure Lufthansa numbers. But we know that every airline is using the concept, and so it can be scalable. The CO2 emission savings are scalable to the entire German traffic, or traffic in the German airspace, at least into those hubs. Well, we are discussing right now how can we take the next step. And the big question is, what traffic load do you expect, or can you expect by having this low demand concept available? It's hard to say a number, 50, 60, 70% pre-crisis level. We don't know yet. We are trying to analyze the traffic streams right now, and maybe we are talking about adjusting letter of acceptances, letter of agreements. I mean, between adjacent sectors, this might be the outcome.
Thank you very much, Frank. I think that answers the question. Maybe we continue with the next one that was addressed to Horst. What about descent profiles of crossing flights to other airports? Do they also pay the bill?
No, and on the impact star, we are covering only the inbound traffic towards Frankfurt, of course. And on that route, we have no crossing inbound traffic to other airports. We have only other crossing traffic, en route crossing traffic, but no other traffic to other airports. So it doesn't affect that flight.
Okay, thanks very much. And the next one that was also addressed to you, why does this procedure start so significantly high? Yeah, because that was the goal of that project, to enable us continuous descent out of cruising level, and that is the only reason why we did it, and that was that is the reason we want to start at cruising level down towards shore approach. Okay, thank you very much. There was one remark also whether you are all familiar of similar endeavors at other European airports. Do you know something about that?
Yes, I know something about that because I was in the working group in Brussels. Frank, what was the name?
Eurocontrol CCO/CDO task force.
That is the name. So I'm quite familiar with all the other attempts to install on CDO. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much to Frank and Horst. We have to postpone the remaining questions to another time. Otherwise, we will be delayed. So thanks to both of you for this very interesting insight. And we will now move to the next presentation into a completely different topic. Of course, we will speak about remote tower projects. This is something we promised to you, and that's something we were also asked prior to this session that this will be addressed today. I have my colleague from DFS, Holger van der Zand, ready. Holger is head of regulatory affairs for remote virtual tower operations at DFS, and he was formerly head of operational staffing in the tower department. So he's very knowledgeable and skilled about this topic. So I'm very happy to hand over to Holger for this presentation now.
Yes, thanks, Yannick. Hopefully everybody can hear me now.
Yes, everybody can hear you. Everybody can see your slide also in a minute. Yeah, we can hear you, so you can now also share your slides.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Sorry and apologize for the technical difficulties. First of all, I want to take part in green flying. That's why I changed my location a bit into the Bergwoods. Welcome everybody to the show of remote tower operations. My name is Holger van de Zand. I'm the head of regulatory affairs, remote and virtual tower operation. And I want to show you something about the history, something about the present, and something about the future concerning remote tower operations, especially under the aspect of multiple remote tower operations. Coming from the history, it's absolutely amazing how fast development was going during the last century. The first air traffic control tower at Croydon Airport, the older of us will remember, in 1920, without any, maybe more or less without any out-of-the-window view. Following by real conventional towers we had in the 60s with single clock as the only technical support for the controllers. At the beginning of the 2000 years, the more or less as we know it today, control tower with a lot of technical equipment, with a lot of displays, with a lot of cameras around. Until we started our remote tower center at Leipzig Halle Airport, that's the DFS Remote Tower Center in 2018. That's a short break over the history where we are coming from, and it's really, really amazing how fast it was going. In 100 years, from nearly none out of the window view to our remote tower center, with, again, no out of the window view as we have it today. So what is the DFS situation at the moment? We started in 2018, coming up with Saarbrücken Airport, remotely controlled from Leipzig-Halle. It's about 420 kilometers away. So we...
Change your slide, please. Sorry for interruption. Don't forget to click your slides.
Just a second.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
But now we don't have the full view, isn't it? Do you see the full slide without any random around?
You should be able to just click the presenter slide, to the presenter mode.
Okay. So, yeah, yes, we are now in the remote tower center Leipzig to have a location-independent provision of aerodrome control services. Started with Saarbrücken Airport, about 420 kilometers away, as I said. And in the next steps, we want to implement Erfurt and Dresden within this center, but only at the moment with a single mode of control. That's the proved concept for the moment with 3 air traffic controllers. They will provide aerodrome control to 3 RTC airports. And of course, we want to cross-train them all to make sure that they are able to work at every airport in the RTC. Maybe in the future we can put the clearance delivery position together into one position. That means that this is some kind of multiple operations, but not to compare with full multiple remote tower operations as a control tool. As far as the clearance delivery position is only responsible for startup clearances and to give en route clearances with no interaction to moving aircraft, whether on ground or in the air. So in this situation, we can put it together. We call it just for the moment multiple, but it isn't multiple remote tower operation so far. Yannick, you can see the slides as...
Okay. Yes, Holger, we can see your slides. Unfortunately, you're not in presenter mode. So if you click on the presenter button, we could see it in full size. You know, on the bottom next to the Zoom slider.
Yes, I did it.
Okay.
I'm now in the presenting mode. On my, I can't see anything else than my slides in the presenting modes at the moment.
Okay, then just to be sure, leave it the way it is. We can see it. It's not very big, but we can see it. Leave it for the moment and continue.
So try to do it this way. So we have a distance of 420, maybe 450 kilometers. We have transferred more than 1 million gigabyte of data without interruption. That's only for the Saarbrücken situation at the moment, with more than 22,000 controlled flights and more than 450,000 passengers. And with a bit proud, I can say all these happened without any major problem to the airlines, to the passengers in Saarbrücken. To the DFS project activities at the moment, the MRTC project activities, we did some design considerations at DFS for the scalability of the system. We decided to have no sinking limits. What means the scalability? That means for n airports from 1 to be little bit jokeful, 1 million airports with multiple remote tower operations. So we don't have sinking limits, and we want to create a system for the provision of air traffic services, high traffic numbers. I have to say at this that we are miles and miles away from any implementation source. This is a real research and development project within DFS and within the SESAR activities. So we are on the way to prove the concept, to prove the systems. I will come back to that later on, but we are miles away from any implementation. That is important to know when we are talking about the MRTC project activities of DFS. So within this research, we'll try to reduce the displayed information to need to know to prevent any unnecessary information from the controller, to focus the mind of the controller to the displayed information, to the needed information. So that is one of the goals of the project. And for this, we decided to focus our attention and to focus the ADCO attention to so-called events. That means standardized procedures, standardized technical reactions, and standardized display, what we want to use for the controller to create events. So every event, I will come back later to that, every event will help the controller to have control over the situation. So for that reason, we want to make a system to create a prototype with electronic flight strip system, of course, as is it usual at the moment, even in conventional towers. a visual representation, and we use it still for Saarbrücken, and we want to use it for Erfurt and Dresden in the single mode operation. And of course, a surveillance, an air surveillance, of course, as we have it at the moment. And maybe if the traffic number or some other facts are forcing us to that with a ground surveillance system. We like to have a big automation, level for our support system, but in any case, the ADCO will remain responsible. That is absolutely important. A lot of automation, a lot of standardization, but the ADCO will remain responsible. That's for safety reason, absolutely without a doubt. So we want to bring the ADCO in a position to work independently of the mentioned events, so that can help to increase capacity or provide non-standard procedures, but in any case to prevent should help the controller to have control over the situation and to know what to do in this case. What does this event means? The event indicates to the ADCO that any action you can imagine is required, so that he will always be aware of the situation and of the next actions needed for the controller. And these actions itself are highly automatic, on a highly automatic level at the moment. So that's our goal, to have it on this automation level. So taxi clearances, takeoff clearances, landing clearances, all that. And of course, you have safety alarms in this event list. We can see later on how the event list is situated in the display. So if there is any taxi deviation, is there a runway incursion or something like that, a landing without clearance or anything else, the controller will be aware of that. And the automation level is for us important, because for the moment we don't know exactly how fast a controller is able to switch his mind and his mindset and his awareness from an event on one airport to a simultaneously event on the other airport. There is research ongoing, but we don't know it exactly. We are in a trial phase, as I said, far away from implementing sorts. And so we have to check it up with the controllers in simulations and in trials, how fast the controller is able to change his awareness, to change his mindset from one airport to the other. And these events will help to shorten this time. So this is our prototype at Langen, at our headquarters. This isn't the controller working position as we will see it in real air traffic control live. So it's a prototype. It's just to bring a setup of displays and of touch input devices for the simulations, to give the controllers the possibility to make trials, to check something. You can see a PT set as we use it, this PT set in the RTC Leipzig for Saarbrücken at the moment. There are different displays for each airport, and one input device where you can switch between the airports and make inputs and get information from the especially airport. So this is the input device of the DFS prototype. You can see a panorama, you can see the flight strip, and what's important is on the right side of the display, you have the event bar. So every event, what is in action for the moment, every flight with a necessary event in the future is displayed there to show the controller that any action is needed for some flights, for a certain flight, and he can see what is upcoming next and can change his mind, can change his awareness to these next necessary actions. So this is a deeper look into this event bar. You can see the call sign, the status, the current status, and the next status. In our case, the current status is the taxi procedure, and the next status will be the takeoff. You can see weather information, and you can see the mentioned airport. In this picture from the simulation activities 2019, there is no color field below the actual airport, so that is one of the next tasks, or to put a color field under the mentioned airport. So in this picture you can see that it is a multiple remote operation from Saarbrücken, Dresden and Erfurt, but you can't see at this stage what airport is mentioned. And in case of an safety event, you have an event box. You have, of course, two event boxes. The one event box is that the aircraft is on taxi, and on the second event box you can see that the aircraft didn't hold at the taxi holding position. We have a runway incursion, and the event box will show it with red light, maybe later on flashing or something like that. We are on trials for that, to show the controller that something is wrong at this moment. So what are the activities? The first results simulations took place in 2019 with 3 EDCOs in a core team. That means these EDCOs are familiar with the situation. They take part in the simulations again and again. And we mix it with 4 newbies. We mixed it 2019, and we will do it in the same way in 2021. That we will mix it with 4 EDCOs, absolutely newbies, unfamiliar with RTC, to get their experiences if they are facing remote tower operations in a multiple way out of the blue in this case. So each simulation lasted 2 weeks with 2 days for each EDCO. That is a question of resources, of course. We have to put the EDCOs out of the normal duty roster and to bring it into the simulation. So for each EDCO 2 days, that's what we could, what we could do even in the future. For the scenarios at this simulation, in 2019 we had 24 movements per hour for all airports together, with up to 6 simultaneously movements for one controller. And we were surprised that there was a huge learning curve. So the controllers get familiar with the system very, very, very fast and felt comfortable after a very short time. The events could be followed. What was a bit difficult for us, we tried to use voice recognition to save simulation pilots as a resource, but this did not work at the moment, and we are within the development on this topic to bring it to the new simulation in 2021 to have voice recognition as well. So we don't need simulation pilots for these simulations. You can see that for the upcoming simulations, the HMI, the trials will be a bit changed, especially the event bar. So we tried, now you can see the colored area below the airport name. And so we are dealing with some different aspects, with some different displays, with some different information constellations to get information, what is the best way for the controller to receive information, to give clearances, to have always the awareness over the situation. So this will be the trials for 21. So the actions, as you can see, I don't want to read out it now because you can see it on the slide. The main action, of course, is to build up the ETCO's trust in procedures and systems, where you can't execute multiple remote tower operations without trust of the ETCOs and without proving the sufficient level of safety, without doing a safety assessment with the human factors assessment in it. So this was a short overview, a rough overview over the situation in DFS simulations for multi-remote tower operations. Thank you for your interest and thanks for being here. And once again, sorry and apologize for the technical difficulties. Back to Yannick.
Thank you very much, Holger, for this very interesting presentation about the multiple approach tower project within DFS. We did receive very, very interesting questions, but I have to apologize because of the time constraint that we have. And in order to give all our presenters the chance to share their knowledge with you, we cannot allow questions for the moment. However, we will discuss internally afterwards how we can address you, and we'll get back in touch with you in order to answer the questions you might have.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, we have to move on. I did already introduce Jan-Erik Putze from Dronic. He is now ready, so I hope he can hear us. He will be accessed to the stage right now. Jan-Erik, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. That is good to hear. So I will hand over to you. The stage is yours. Feel free to share your slides. Hope it works. Otherwise, we are also ready to share them for you.
Perfect. Very good. So I start all over again. So thank you very much, and a warm welcome to everyone at the World Webinar of DAS. Before I start, I also want to thank you, even if we have some technical problems, to Yannick and his team for giving us a professional help and hands-on due to the presentations and everything even before. So thank you very much. And also thank you for giving us a chance to say something about drone operations. Yeah, a quick introduction to myself. My name is Jan-Erik Putze. I'm the CEO of Dronic. Why I'm at Dronic? Because I have a strong economic and aviation background. Besides that, I'm still, let's say, an active pilot in the business aviation environment and also an instructor. So I think this aviation side is one of my heart is pumping in my let's say body, and that's why I'm here. Together with my colleagues from Dronic, we combine, let's say, the knowledge of various sides. So we have telecommunication background, we have air traffic control background, and of course, general aviation background, and our goal at Dronic is to enable unmanned operations, especially BVLOS, or the beyond visual line of sight, using a unique cellular UTM to visualize and safely integrate drones into the existing environment. That's actually our scope, and I think it's pretty unique in that very young industry. But what we really do, I'll give you a quick, let's say, 1 minute show what is behind Dronic and what we stand for. So I hope you see that. Yeah, I hope that gave you a quick overview of what we do. And besides that, I was very interested in the one screen Holger showed in the previous presentation with that operator view of a controller. And to be honest, it most or less looks like a drone operator controller position. It always looks the same. So you have the same monitors and everything, of course, but you're controlling an aircraft or an UAS, and so actively. But maybe we can combine these two positions within the next years, maybe to find a new view of working together. Anyhow, what is Dronic? We have a very, let's say, small history. We started in 2019. That was Dronic was founded. Before that, we had a research and development project named Connected Drones from 2 years period of time to see if this drone market is evolving and if it is necessary and, of course, economical, meanwhile, to found a company. And as you see, it was. So in 2019, Dronic was built. We are now located in Frankfurt, and we presented the first cellular UTM to the market actually this year. And our goal will also be to be the leading platform of unmanned aviation. So whatever is needed for that, you will find within, let's say, Dronic, and of course within the DFS as a total shareholder combination. As I said, shareholder is DFS and Telecom. Mostly 50%, but DFS owns 51% and Deutsche Telekom 49%. So this is the shareholder overview of Dronic. So now, setting up the scene, talking about US, the UAS regulation in Europe. That's actually how it looked like. In Germany, we would call it a Flickenteppich. I tried to find a word for that. In English, patchwork, carpet, I don't know, but I mean, from the colors, I think you know what I mean. You have different or various EU countries with different regulations, and this is and even in Germany, where you have the federal system, where we have another 16, let's say, different regulations when it comes to drones. And this is actually a very big problem we are facing in Europe to bring the drone operations, let's say, really in the air and even across borders. It is very difficult. But the EU is definitely working pretty hard on that. They started defining EU-wide regulations and rules. They are starting actually with a EU-wide harmonization of technical specifications of drones. That was a very big step and a starting point, let's say, for drone manufacturers to really establish drone manufacturers to follow standard rules. This is actually very good for us. And the last and final thing was now they approved the EU space regulation, which will be effective in January 2023. And this will, from our perspective, enable drone operations in future, because now company knows if they want to invest, they know what kind of rules they have to cope with to be possible to fly their missions. So this is actually a great step for us, and we're looking forward to that. Of course, that brings also pressure on us, because our system has to be completely ready in 2023 to be able to scale with a huge amount of drone operators we are expecting. But I will come to that later. Why do we need now this European-wide regulation? I was mentioning that already. of course, if you don't know the regulations in the country you're working, it will not, let's say, speed up innovations, because you have to wait, or actually, if you innovate something and you don't know what the regulation in the end is, that will not, you will not invest. And even besides that, if you don't know what kind of specifications are requested, even from the drone and also from the operator side, you also don't invest. And if you don't find harmonization, even in a country, of course, also cross-border, then you also do not invest. And if you don't have standardized rules and regulations in place, ensuring safety, of course, all ANSPs will not really want to cope with drones. So this is something we have to cope with, and that's why we're really happy that EASA is now, let's say, defining regulations and also AMCs, which you have to follow to be able to be a very, very solid market player in that area. But why are we actually looking at that? Could we just lean back and wait until the drone community just goes away, maybe something else comes up, and then we have to face the problem? To be honest, I don't really think so. I think this was the idea of the past 4 years, just waiting what the market is doing, and if we even have a market. And I think we can really say, yes, we do have a market, and we have a very, very tremendous growth potentials. And I only look at Germany now. So if you look at drone operations commercially, if you see the light green presentation, it is rising until 2025, and with a growth of 24%. And even the market percentage in million euros is also rising up to 16%. That means we definitely have to look at this new economy, because it is rising, and I think it will be powerful. And now we have really the chance also to form that market a little bit, not the market, but form how the drone operations will be proceed in future, and that we don't have the fear that maybe Google comes later on when we set up the scene completely and they say, well, I do whatever you want, I have everything ready. This is actually something we fear a little bit. So I would say if we're now ahead of that market and try to define it, we can also set standards. And I think this is very important for us. And that's also what I wanted to say. Work with them, take them seriously, because they are coming, and take them as a new partner in that aviation environment. So coming about when we talk about figures, I think it's pretty clear that this market will come. We don't know really when, but we really think in 2023 ongoing, we definitely have a big market increase. What has EASA done so far to harmonize RIAS operations? They have now defined classes based on risk assessments. So now we don't talk about private or, let's say, fun drones anymore, or commercial operations. We have now 3 different classes where we have to let's say, see where our drone is flying. We have an open category, which represents a very low risk. Why is it low? Because we more or less talk about VLOS operations, as within line of sight. You have always see the drone. We have a very low altitude band, below 120 meters, and of course we cannot fly over people and national air and geo zones. It is just not allowed. Then we have a specific category. We call it medium risk. This is everything else. So if you want to fly over 120 meters, and if you want to fly BVLOS, or if your drone reaches a certain want to fly over people, then there's something we talk about as a specific class. And everything which is certified is, we call it high risk. Certified is actually whenever you transport people in drones without a pilot, and when you transport dangerous goods. This is all currently in the certified class. So if we sum it up, where is that market more or less, let's say, evolving and rising, and even quick? We talk about the specific area. In the specific class, this is where we see most of the industrial drone operations in the future states. Talking about that, what is our current problem? So talking about the problem statement and possible solutions, out on, oops, that was too quick, out on the market, we see we have a high degree of bureaucracy. What does it mean? Whenever you apply for a flight, you have to do that manually. You have to do risk assessments. You have to apply for that. You have to train your people for that specific operation. We have no standardization. It's even dependent on the country, and even in we call it in German the Bundesland, in the state. It might be also different. Long approval process. You cannot say I want to fly tomorrow. It's just not possible. It takes at least 2 to 3 months to apply for an operation. And what is very important, it's different from manned aviation. Why is it different? Because the people, the pilots and also the operators, they are more or less, they have no aviation history. They don't know what aviation is. They're pedestrians now having a drone and want to participate in let's say, in airspace, and we definitely have to take them by the hand, because they don't see traffic lights, they don't see traffic signs, they don't see markings on the street, they just see blue sky. They just take the drone and go fly. And so we have to really tell them, well, yeah, you can fly, but of course there are some rules and you have to follow that. And maybe it's also meanwhile to take a look at the regulations. So we really have to take them by the hand. Besides that, we have missing acceptance, let's say from people outside, people living in houses, and they're just afraid when a drone flies over their house. Maybe they takes a video or picture and put that on the internet. So this is something there. It's a fear, but this is not what drones actually are made for when we talk about commercial operation. So normally you follow a pipeline. You have a certain job to do, and it's not just to take a picture from your neighborhood or even from your neighbor. But I mean, this is of course something which the public outside thinks. They are also afraid of that. Of course, this is another very important issue. The aviation industry, as you know, is a highly regulated business. I mean, it's built over years, and we have lots of rules we have to follow. And now it meets a more or less unregulated industry. And now they are actually, since they are now also want to have a market share, now the drone industry realizes, oh Jesus, if I want to really cope with the manned aviation, maybe we just have to come a little bit closer together and define maybe rules both can addict on. So that means we have to somehow bring all airspace users together and share the same picture of airspace, because actually we're all working or flying in that same airspace, no matter if it's a drone or a manned aircraft. So what has EASA done to do that, to explain that? Well, we have now the possibility to define standard scenarios, to get authorizations of our operations, and even to, let's say, apply for light as operator certificate, which is called LOOK. And this now really offers the opportunity for drone operators to use, let's say, for their specific operation, the right tool. And this is actually good. The thing is, once we talk to ANSPs, even if we talk to colleagues from DFS, somehow the controllers, or even the ANSP world, they don't really understand what drones can do in the end. So we also see the need for the willingness to understand the way how drones operate, because they definitely do it in a different way. They fly circles, they go up and down pretty easily, they make turns very sharp, and this is something which we don't know in the ANSP world, because everything is predicted. We know where the aircraft normally is, even when the aircraft starts, we know where it should be in 20 minutes. This is, of course, drone operations is different. But look now at these specific categories of the possibilities you have. You can have operational authorization. That was what I was talking in the beginning. A lot of bureaucracy. You need to have a specific risk assessment. You have to have a ConOps. You have to submit your application, and of course you have to wait for approvals. And maybe even you have to contact some other organizations even to get your authorization approved. Let's take a look on the far right. We can also have standard scenarios. So EASA has defined standard scenarios for drone operations. So whenever you are within these standard scenarios where they describe what kind of operation you're doing, what do you do for risk mitigations and so on, you can say, okay, now I don't need a special authorization because my operation can be considered as standard, and I will declare myself that I follow these standard scenarios. And then of course we have the look, and this is the look is maybe in NSP worlds is the AOC for drones. So you have to have for that operation, you have to have general documents. You must have a safety assessment. You must have ConOps, all that you know. So that means you have to declare against the national authority, which in Germany is the Luftfahrtbundesamt, your operational scenario. So you have to describe what you do. You have to tell them how you train your people. You have to tell them how you maintain your drones, how you mitigate risk, how you do compliance, and you have to show that the organizational structure behind that is capable of, let's say, managing everything. That means your LOC or look is once approved, and then you can just conduct whatever you do under what has been approved by the LBA, and it only will be, not only, but it will be assessed by the LBA by year. So you have to document every single, let's say, operation you were doing. So that's what we know. So what I want to say with this slide is to tell you now the drone, even that the drones is new to the market, they will now follow also regulations, and the look is the first possibility for them to apply for a regular operation. And once they can do that, I think we will even see more commercial drones operating in our environment, not only in Germany, because this is a European possibility, so we can also apply for that in Spain or Italy or elsewhere. And the thing is, once you've applied, as the same for the AOC, you have to apply, you have to approve once. It doesn't matter in which country it will be, let's say, adopted by any other country in the EU region. So that means when I have a look in Germany, I can easily fly in Spain. And this is also very good for the community. But why I am saying that? I have some more numbers for you. Maybe that should ring a bell and maybe wake us up a little bit. We know that we have, looking at Germany, 111 registered AOC holders in Germany, and we have these over the last 30 years, also including Lufthansa. Lufthansa is one of these 111 and all the others, but also small airlines or business operators, whoever holds an AOC. So we have 111 in Germany over 30 years. Now, actually, I would have now if it was been a live presentation, well, it is live, but in front of people, I would have asked you how many registered drone operators do we have in Germany? Maybe double, maybe triple, I don't know, but no. We have 192,000 registered drone operations within months. And I think this number should definitely wake us up and say, well, drones are definitely here. They will come. They want the right to fly in that airspace, no matter if it's controlled or uncontrolled airspace. Definitely they will start low, but to be honest, they will also fly in controlled airspace later on. And that's why we definitely have to make up our mind how we want to integrate them into the existing environment. That brings us to challenges. As I said, it's just a summary now. Drones are primarily used by non-aviation operators. As I said, they have no experience. They don't know what competent authorities are. They don't know how to talk to, but they have the willingness to do that. And I really say we have to help them. Drones are also complex. They also fly in 3 dimensions, but definitely they do have different speeds and do quicker directional changes. Drones in the open category in specific are currently not visible for NSPs. That's true because they are not actually, they don't have to use certain hardware to be visible. They don't have an ADS-B transponder. They just even can carry them because it's too heavy. So we have to find different ways of making them visible. That's one of the things Dronic is doing. We are trying to make them visible, and not with a German standard. We try to set a European standard that also that drones can fly cross-border later on, can be displayed. That we have one display for manned and unmanned aviation. So that's actually the UTM we are using. We are combining ANSP or ATM and UTM is one view, so we combine these two worlds in one and can display them as one vision or one visibility, one visualization, of these two industries. Yeah, and also something else. I think CTRs are not really designed for drone operations. We also have to think about maybe how can drone, let's say, come closer to an airport with geofence, for example. This is something drones can really do. So how do you communicate? That's another thing. We need a new way of communication with drones. I think the radio communication is not suitable for drone operations. We need some other way to communicate with them. And oh, well, that's double for that. I have to apologize. And one thing, time to market does not cope with the existing aviation standards. I think if a drone operator cannot fly, then he's changing something, and then he can fly, or he changes the system. Maybe that's a little bit too fast. Maybe it's a little bit too unregulated, but definitely it is much, much faster as what we know from the aviation standards so far. But I think the future is already here. And I also want to be part of that. So as you see, lots of different let's say aircraft types. Even a drone is an aircraft per definition. Lots of different altitudes, and we somehow have to bring everything together that it's still safe and still smooth, and everyone has the right to be there. But of course, make it safe. And one last thing to bring up to your mind: vision or reality? What do we know? Yes, Prime Air, we know DHL, that's for sure. Yes, and Prime Air also has drones, and so does DHL. But what about this? I mean, this is just a typical aircraft. You see no windows. So I'm saying, what is a normal aircraft currently, or what can a normal aircraft not do? It cannot take off and it cannot taxi, but it can land. And so the most complex thing is an aircraft already capable of doing. It can land, but the rest is still open. And I think that's only a small step, that even manned aviation can be easily made unmanned. And this, at the latest stage, if you haven't seen the 257,000 drone operators, this should ring the bell and make us wake up and talk to that new industry to combine these two worlds. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully it was in the limits, and I apologize for the beginning problems, but hopefully, happy to have your questions even online if it's not possible now. I think that's then up to Yannick and his team to decide however you want to proceed.
Thank you very much, Jan-Erik. We were able to recover some of the time. But like with the remote tower presentation, we won't make it to answer your questions. But on the last slide, Jan-Erik shared his contact information, so feel free to contact him directly to get in touch with him. As said, he is happy to answer your questions. To also give Clemens and Thorsten the chance to hold their presentation as promised and to speak about the new introduction of runway safety at Frankfurt Airport. They are ready and good to go. I, of course, hope with no technical difficulties. So thank you very much, Jan-Erik, for your time and for your efforts. And we will then move to Thorsten Astheimer from Frankfurt Airport and Clemens Schiebel from DFS for the last session for today. Clemens, Thorsten, can you hear me? Can we hear you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly well.
Perfect.
And here I am too. So I hope you can hear me too.
That's good news. All right, then the floor is yours. I think we will share the presentation, right? Okay, we will share the presentation for you. Just say next slide, and we will click it for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Yannick, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm well aware that it's only Clemens and myself standing between you and your well-deserved lunch break or your well-deserved end of the day, even if you're visiting us from Asia. But I'll still hope that the coming 10 to 15 minutes will be of interest for you, as I know that runway safety is a burning topic at many airports, and we will exactly talk about runway safety and the prevention of runway incursions at airports. Next slide, please. We'll have the introduction and the concept, but just switch the slide and we'll go to the next one. Before we dive into the topic, actually, I would just like to give you a short insight into Fraport and who we are and what we're doing, in case there are some people amongst you who are not completely familiar with the company. Fraport is the owner and operator of Frankfurt Airport, but we are also one of the leading players in international airport business. We are operating 30 airports around the world in 4 continents, and we are doing this in a financially quite healthy way, I have to say. But apart from operating airports and airport business, we are also doing consulting projects for clients around the world. This leads from training, master planning to complete ORAD projects. So let's say the opening of complete new airports and terminals, like we've done in Bahrain and we are currently doing in Riyadh so far. Can you switch to the? Yes, and at our home base in Frankfurt, I have to. Before COVID, we were handling around 70 million passengers. So that is almost 200,000 a day and 1,400 flights a day. Of course, this is only possible through a long-standing cooperation and collaboration with the local stakeholders to manage the safety and operational excellence. And we have exactly this long partnership with DFS, our ATC, a navigation service provider, which is even more important as we are operating as Fraport, the apron control units in Frankfurt. And the project we are going to talk to you about today is just an outcome of this collaboration between the two parties. And this is, I think, what makes it so unique compared to other systems of the same kind. Please switch. So first of all, the definition of a runway incursion. You can see it here on the screen. It's the ICAO definition. So it's the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on the protected area of a runway. Please go on. But you have to say that a runway incursion is not a runway incursion, because technically speaking, you are already doing a runway incursion when you brake like 1 meter too late and cross the stop bar by 1 meter, but without endangering anyone. This is why ICAO has classified runway incursions into from A to D, into severe ones down to only technical ones, which do not present an immediate danger for anyone. But still, the data shows, despite all the efforts taken, that there is still some 2 daily runway incursions in Europe, and the numbers remain steady as presented by Eurocontrol. The contributing factors to this are quite different or manifold. Sometimes it's the complex infrastructure of the airport. Pilots will know that if they come to a complex airport first time, maps are nice, but still the environment can be misleading. Very often it's poor visibility, but also lack of training for drivers especially, and poor procedures. And this can only, the risk of entering a runway, which nobody does on purpose, obviously, can only be reduced by adding additional safety nets. So the safety nets are something that are some sensors, technical systems that will prevent exactly this incursion into a runway. But the runway of an airport is a strange animal, because the responsibilities are shared between the different stakeholders. So the operational responsibility is, of course, always with the air navigation service provider. And whereas the infrastructure and the technology that is there, like lighting, cabling, sensors, and so on, is generally within the responsibility of the airport. And very often, the airport is a private company. It has a different oversight as the ANSP. So it definitely takes a combined, joint approach to solve this issue. And this is what is not happening at many airports, because airport operator and ANSP are not talking enough to each other or not cooperating. And we want to present to you today what we can do joining forces and what we can do against runway incursions on the example of RIAS. And Clemens is now going to tell you something about how the system works in the tower and how we develop the system.
Yeah, thanks, Thorsten. Good day, everybody. Let's directly jump into the concept of RIAS, which has initially set up at Frankfurt Airport. So our approach on the runway incursion and alerting system was to provide a concept consisting of 3 components, saying about alerting for controllers, alerting for pilots, and in-field detection with the help of sensors. So this combination, this concept allows for immediate actions on both sides, on the controller side and also on the pilot side, and with the overall idea to prevent runway incursions and stop bar violations. And in order to give you a short impression on the test and evaluation approach, I would just pick some highlights and going to present it. So we did a lot of testing before this concept went into operation. Having started with the technical trials in 2017, the target was to assess the functionality and effectiveness of the sensor system in the field. Next step was started in 2018, the operational trials with the idea to assess the effectiveness and suitability of the alerting for both sides, pilot and also the controllers. During these 2 phases, we had more than 77,000 movements on this stop bar. And finally, we have assessed that this concept is safe, is reliable, and with a 100% success rate. So hence, the operational usage started at 1 location at Frankfurt Airport, and new locations will be provided soon with the RIAS concept. Let's have a look into the tower and the integration into our tower systems. So RIAS currently is directly linked to the lighting system and the Phoenix ground situational display. So whenever a stop bar is activated, RIAS works in the background, dark and silent. With the moment the stop bar will be deactivated and the pilot is clear to cross the runway, for example, or clear to continue, RIAS at this specific location gets deactivated, and then the pilot can enter the runway system. So with the screenshot from our Phoenix ground situational display, there are 2 aircraft listed. Aircraft 1 currently on the runway, and there's another one, aircraft 2. And this aircraft 2, during our test phases, crossed the stop bar while it was still active. So note, it was during the trials, everything was communicated. And whenever there's such a incident that the RIAS system will be active or will be gets activated, alerts will be prompted to the controllers, and also via acoustical signal and also via visual signals. As then in the ground situational display, the stop bar will be colored with another color, and with the acoustic signal, with also identifying the taxiway where the overrun or the stop bar violation has been happened. And so it's a good indication for the controller to take immediate actions whenever an aircraft, a vehicle, or whatever has overrun active stop bar. So this comes with a positive effect that the controller directly receives all the information he needs to take immediate action. Benefit side, with the 4 bullets in the bottom, all in all, this controller alerting system prevents runway incursions and prevents situation where people not allowed to enter the runway, or for vehicles, also aircraft. And will be alerted on both sides, on the controller side, as we have discussed in this slide, and on the pilot side, Torsten will showcase in the next pages. So the operational safety will be definitely increased without additional controller workload. As I have mentioned, it is working dark and silent in the background. So whenever the stopper will be managed, RIAS will be accordingly switched on and off. It is directly integrated into the tower systems, and all in all, for Frankfurt Airport use case, this concept supports safe and efficient runway crossings. I will now hand back over to Torsten, who will elaborate a bit on the pilot's alerts and the in-field detection. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the important components of the system or of the concept is, of course, the generation of the necessary data for the alerts, because typically the surface movement radar or ASM GCS sensors lack the precision required to detect a runway incursion. So this starts with the fact that the multilateration antennas are not on the same spot on every aircraft, so we can have a variance of up to 30-40 meters. Depending on the location of the antenna, which is, of course, for a stopper overrun, not acceptable. So we need additional sensors, and we have tested microwave radar sensors, inductive loops, and the newest one are magnetic field sensors that we have installed in critical points. For Frankfurt, the installation is only currently active at one runway entry, which we use to cross our central runway, and where we want to protect aircraft from entering the runway when they are not supposed to. The sensors, of course, have to be deployed in a way that they can detect a potential stopper overrun before it actually happens, because it's nice to have the information that a runway incursion has occurred, but it's much better to have the information before it occurs and to prevent it, really. What you can see on the right-hand side is the diagram of a magnetic field sensor, and which is in line with the center line, and you can see the peak where the front wheel of the aircraft is, because it's more or less the only metal part, except from the turbines, that you still have at an aircraft, and which you can therefore detect with magnetic sensors. Please continue. So, but there is another aspect of in-field technology, and that is, as Clemens has quite rightly pointed out, it's of course important to alert the controller, but it's even more important to alert the pilot or the driver of the vehicle that is about to do this runway incursion. Because in case of a failure of communication lines, and also we have a certain latency in the communication, it's important that it happens very fast so that the runway incursion can be aborted. So we do that usually through lights in the field or through acoustic signals. So as I said, this is something that we have to find out, which can be different for every runway entry, depending on the geometry. Please, next slide. So after the implementation at Frankfurt, we have continued to work on the subject in R&D projects, and also some projects that we have here, operational project that we have here. So we have certain features that are still under development. So for instance, what you see on the right-hand side is a magnetic field sensor. This is just a cable with a very thin sensor that can be easily installed by just digging a very small hole in the taxiway, so you don't even technically need to put the taxiway out of operation. We have automatic voice alerting for the cockpit crew. We have also another alerting system for the tower, not through the airfield ground lighting, but through designated cabling and asterisk category 4 alerting for ASM GCS, so easy to integrate. And we have tested AI to predict braking profiles of aircraft at stop bars, so that we can predict if an aircraft will overrun the stop bar or not. Continue, please. So finally, the RIAS concept is very flexible, and it can be based on local available technologies. So we are not talking about a system, we are talking about a concept that consists of sensors and that consists of an integration into existing tower system. We have gained some know-how through our trials and through our R&D project, and it will be more than happy to partner with any one of you in case you want, let's say, an independent analysis of what the runway risks are at your airport and what you can do about runway incursion prevention. That was a very quick run through the presentation. You will find our contact details on the final slide. So please do not hesitate to contact us or to contact the organizers of the event in case you have any questions, because I fear we have run out of time, and I think Yannick will confirm that from his way.
This is correct. Thank you very much, Torsten. Thank you very much, Clemens, for your flexibility and for keeping it a bit shorter. However, we are of course happy to coordinate your contact details directly with our viewers in case there is further interest or there are upcoming questions. This does bring us to the end of today's session. We did exceed the time by 6 minutes. I think this is still in the limits. Thank you very much for participating. It was great to be in touch with you. We had an average of more than 200 viewers all the time, which is great for us. Of course, we do always appreciate your feedback, so please get in touch with us via social media or via the known email contacts. Of course, we do hope to see you again very soon in person. DFS intends to participate, of course, at World ATM Congress in Madrid, in case it will happen, and also at Dubai Air Show, which is scheduled for November this year. In the meanwhile, thanks to all of you, thanks to the speakers and to the team of organization. Stay healthy and goodbye.